Friday, and I've come your way once again to serve you some business stories that made headlines in the week and an interview a member of the business desk had with an expert. My name is Ernestina Sewa Asante, and this is BizTech on Ghana Web TV. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back from that break. Last week, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta appeared before Parliament to present the mid-year budget review statement. So my colleague Mauli Aholumega sat with the IEA boss to dissect the minister's presentation. Let's have a look at their conversation.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of BizTech on Ghana Web TV. The Finance Minister has presented the 2021 mid-year budget before Parliament. Amongst many things, he has outlined a very ambitious plan to create 1 million jobs over the next 3.5 years. Also, government is also lagging behind its revenue mobilization efforts. We'll be delving into a conversation with the Director of Research at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Dr. John Kwache, and we'll be having a conversation on the post-budget analysis of the just presented mid-year review statement by the Finance Minister. Doc, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. And you?
I'm fine, thank you. So the Finance Minister has presented the budget. What's your general overview of the presentation?
Well, the budget is, of course, a very big document, and it contains a lot of, issues, various policies, how the minister is going to raise revenue to fund various projects and programs, and so it's a very big document. So naturally, one will normally choose areas that are of interest to him, and then maybe highlight them. But in general, my view is that just like previous budgets, the budget doesn't have the plans to collect revenue. To me, they are not sufficient, or they are not ambitious enough. In other words, I look at our revenue profile. I mean, how much government is collecting. I mean, the minister says they will collect this year, and even go into the medium term. And I'm looking at them and I'm saying, these amounts, they are not enough to fund all the other, the expenditure needs of the country. So naturally, what happens is that because we are not collecting enough revenue, our expenditure is also constrained. We need resources to do a lot of things. And I'm sure that every sector of this economy is crying for money. Without money, you cannot do much. So I have a serious reservation with the effort to collect revenue to fund various projects and programs. And then when we go into how we allocate the resources that we mobilize also, we don't mobilize enough, but within what we mobilize, again, the allocation is not that efficient in the sense that we spend more on things that are more consumption related, paying interest, paying salaries, funding administration and all those recurrent expenditures. And then we devote very little to capital expenditure, which will rather cause the economy to grow and then even create more jobs. And so in general, this is my view of the budget.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that submission. But I want to come to what was very key when he was making the Finance Minister was making the presentation. He said he wasn't coming to Parliament to ask for more money. Do you think that was a very prudent move? Do you think maybe because they've borrowed enough or they have enough money and they are seeking to work within a certain budget frame?
But to me, he's just trying to play safe, because he just sticking to the budget that he presented last year in November.
Okay.
Saying that, look, my revenue estimates, I'm sure I hope to, be able to mobilize what I said I'll collect. The expenditure side also, I'll keep to the expenditure ceiling, the appropriation that the Parliament approved for me last year. And because of that, I'm not asking for any more money. And then also, of course, he's not introducing any taxes. These are the two areas that require, parliamentary approval. If you are introducing new taxes or asking for more money, then Parliament will have to approve. But he didn't ask for either of them. So what will happen is that Parliament will just debate the budget, comment on it, and then they pass it. Yeah, but I thought after 6 months after presenting the budget last year, I would have thought that the minister would take advantage of, developments in the economy, which must have affected his revenue estimates and expenditure estimates, and come up with new, estimates. There's nothing wrong with going back to Parliament and asking for more money. Of course, you need the approval to do that, but there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. So the minister, I think, like he played it safe. So I'm not collecting any money. But whether he will be right on target as far as his revenue estimates and expenditure estimates are concerned, and therefore keep to the budget, deficit at 9.5% of GDP. That's going to be, I'm sure, very challenging.
Okay. Now, obviously, we know COVID has done quite a lot on the economy. Our public debt stock keeps on rising. As at the Bank of Ghana's latest figures for May, the GDP ratio is almost close to 77%. Should we be worried?
Yes, in a way, yes, we should. Because the rate at which we are accumulating debt, it's a bit worrying. 70% of GDP is normally used as a cutoff point for middle-income countries like Ghana. So we have certainly exceeded that. And if you look at the medium-term profile, and the IMF has given some estimates of our debt profile, you'll see that we'll stay above the 70% and even probably hit 80s. Before maybe after 5 years or so, coming back, down. And already IMF has described Ghana as having a high risk of debt distress. But all the same, if you look at the document, the Article 4 consultation document, they have also said that it is still manageable. Okay, so we have a high risk of debt distress, but they say it is still manageable.
But Doc, isn't that scary a bit? Isn't that a bit
maybe
scary?
What they are thinking is that over the medium term, maybe they project that the economy will grow. That's your GDP, growing fast enough so that, and then if you are able to reduce the budget deficit also, then you wouldn't need to borrow so much. So your debt profile will then tend to come down. That's the kind of thinking that I think the IMF has. But as a matter of fact, you see, the debt stock, to be honest, the debt stock is really not the immediate burden for the budget. It doesn't pose immediate financial burden because your debt stock is 100% of GDP. You are not going to pay all of it today, okay? But it's a debt service. In other words, how much you pay in terms of interest, that is going to, burden the budget today. And our interest payment, in terms of the tax, how much of our tax we use to pay interest is very high. It's over 50%. And so that is where the burden is. It's not just the debt stock. And that really affects the budget because you have to allocate so much money to pay interest, and then you don't have enough to fund all the other activities. So that is where the burden is going to be.
Okay. So I have a document here from your press conference the other day. I saw something very interesting on the fiscal deficit. I'll just read briefly. It says, the fiscal deficit is kept at the same level of about 9.5% as in the 2021 budget. It is, however, not known if this figure includes the energy and the financial sector cost or not. government and opposition have argued noisily about whether reported deficits include or exclude these costs. So just a little brief. And there's always been this back and forth, obviously, from both parties as to whether they included the energy and the financial sector, which is the one that is whether increasing it or reducing it. What do you think is the solution to solve all this issue?
Yeah, I suggested in my presentation in that paper that, you know, government, since they came to power in 2017, they have had to pay some costs in the energy sector. They inherited some of those costs. They inherited some of them. So they have had to pay very substantial amounts in the energy sector. They have also, you know, by bailing out the failed banks, they also spent a lot of money, over 20 billion.
Banking sector cleanup.
Exactly. So, you know, and then recently COVID expenditures also. These are very huge expenditure items, okay? But they are certainly part of government expenditure, you know, so they will feed through the budget into the deficit and even debt. They will run through like that, okay? So first, government should state clearly what these expenditures are in terms of, I mean, the expenditure going to the energy sector, the expenditure going to the banks, and then the COVID expenditure. Let's see them very clearly in the budget, okay? Then we will arrive at a deficit. Well, if that deficit doesn't include, you know, those expenditures, anybody that wants to add them will then add them, okay? If you want to tell us that they are very irregular expenditures, extraordinary expenditures, and therefore I want to show them separately, that's fine. But my problem is not showing it at all. And then even if we are not told whether the deficit that is being reported, whether it contains it or it doesn't contain it.
It doesn't make the numbers tally properly.
Exactly. So just the 9.5%, for instance, as I said, I didn't read anywhere in the budget, the review that said, oh, it contains these costs or it doesn't contain those costs. So I'm just appealing to government to, even if you can state them as a memorandum items. I think that's what the opposition is also probably.
They've made a call for it a number of times.
I want just transparency. Transparency and credibility. Don't behave like you are hiding something. You don't have to hide it. You know, show it, and then especially those of us researchers who do analysis, and we want to see it so that we can use it to do our analysis. And it's good for transparency and credibility of the fiscal accounts.
Okay, all right, Doc. Let me just go for a quick break. Okay, so I've been speaking to Dr. John Kwache, and he's the Director of Research at the IEA, and we'll be talking about the budget, 2021 media budget review that was presented by the Finance Minister. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Nanama McBrown. I'm proud to be part of Ghana Web Road Safety Campaign. Please, do the right thing. Save a life. Brim.
Okay, so welcome back. Doc, so we've been having a very interesting conversation. I want to delve down into something that is very, very topical to the average Ghanaian, unemployment. The minister announced a very ambitious plan of government to create 1 million jobs. We are in almost the first 6 months of a 4-year term of the NPP government. The finance minister says they're going to use the Ghana Cares Obatampa program to create these jobs. Do you think, what's your, I want to pick your thoughts of this whole job creation agenda.
Well, okay, as we all agree, unemployment is a big challenge in this country, especially youth unemployment. Which has all kinds of problems. In fact, the minister quoted the Ghana SASCA service that unemployment, the national unemployment rate is about 8.4%, and that the rate for the youth is 12.6%.
Yeah.
Well, to me, these figures, they are a bit conservative as far as, although I don't have the exact figures. But if we look at, what is going on, on the ground, and then I don't even know how they will classify underemployment, because yes, we have unemployment. So people who have
no jobs at all. Yeah.
Then there's also somebody who is just selling two, dog chains, on the street. Can we call that person unemployed? So there's a very serious problem of underemployment. Okay, but these figures aside, I know that the problem is much bigger than maybe what the SASCA service is saying. Unless, of course, they have a different definition of unemployment. Government has proposed several schemes.
Yeah, the National Unemployment Insurance Scheme.
They are mainly targeted to the youth, which are very, very, very good and well-intentioned, schemes, especially the training aspect. Okay, that they will train them, and equip them with the necessary skills so that they can become more employable. I think that's a very good initiative.
Yeah.
That every government, should undertake. Okay, but when it comes to the, creating jobs, government can only create temporary jobs. They may not be of the best quality jobs, because job creation really is not the mandate or the responsibility of governments. Okay, they can help. What governments normally do is to create the enabling environment, conducive environment, yes, for businesses to grow, the private sector to grow, and then they will create the jobs and absorb, the unemployed. But of course, as you said, the Oba Tampa or CARES,
Ghana CARES program, yeah,
that is where they said they will try and transform the economy, in various ways through agriculture and agribusiness, industry, and industry, and then also digitization and technology. Okay, so they have a whole host of schemes that they said they are used to generate, jobs. And you see, but the point is that these schemes, we have heard about them, many of them in the past. Okay, the challenge normally is to, how to concretize them, how to really implement them, because some of them also require resources, money. Already the NAPCOP, a lot of resources is going to the NAPCOP. You see, sometimes we hear that maybe even their allowances have delayed and all kinds of things. So, these schemes they involve a lot of resources. And that will also impose further burden on the budget. That is why it is always advisable for government to do its best. Training, for instance, as I said, is very good. Let's equip the youth so that they can also employ themselves. They don't always have to go looking for somebody to employ them. In other countries, they equip people with skills, the youth, so that they can also create their own jobs. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah. So just quickly back on that, some have suggested that the private sector is not so well positioned for some of these policy interventions to roll out. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, but of course, we all know that the Ghana private sector is probably not that, it's weak, and maybe on the size there, maybe it's a big sector. Most of the activities are also in the informal sector, and but it is because we have not addressed the obstacles, various impediments that have kept them, so weak. So we need to address the obstacles that have faced the private sector.
Mm.
If you look at, the regulatory framework, I mean, their access to credit, their access to utility, the cost of infrastructure support, public services, the cost of public services, and then even taxation.
Yeah.
All of these obstacles sort of, have hindered the growth of the private sector. So we need to open up and remove these obstacles, ease them. Otherwise, they will continue to be tiny and weak, and then they cannot absorb. And then the responsibility for job creation will lie entirely on government. Meanwhile, the public sector is overbloated already. Most of our resources, a lot of our resources is going to the public sector. And it's not always, funding efficient activities. It's not always going to investment. Some of them mainly compensation and all that. So that is, government must try and get the proper balance between creating the jobs themselves and then empowering the private sector, to do so.
So basically, it's about getting quality jobs and sustainable ones.
Oh yes, quality, more permanent jobs. I mean, you can say I've created jobs. You see, and then when government also tries to impose itself on the job market, like create these jobs and determine arbitrarily wages and so on, they distort the labor market. The government is not responding to labor supply and demand. They are just imposing these numbers on the market and then determining their salaries and wages and so on. So it creates that kind of distortion also in the labor market.
Yeah. All right, Doc. I want to come to point 8. I also think this is very important from your statement. Economic transformation policy. The first line is very, very startling. You said the Ghanaian economy has retained virtually its colonial structure. 64 years after independence, still exporting extractives and other primary commodities. Because these commodities are exported in raw, unprocessed form, they fetch low prices on international markets, where Ghana is a price taker and render the economy vulnerable to terms of trade shocks. This is quite startling. I remember you almost said the same thing, I think, in the last budget as well, that we are still having an issue with our commodity pricing as well. We're not able to really use that to our advantage. And you are saying it here again.
Yes, but this is something, a problem that has been with us for 64 years. So naturally, I've been saying it forever. But it's not only me.
Others have also said it.
Yes, policymakers, researchers.
Even the international bodies have said it.
Exactly. And it's not like even our governments, our own policymakers, it's not like they don't know this. Is it? It is not like they don't know it. They know it. And I remember Nana Akufo-Addo, as far back as 2010 or thereabouts, he has been in this political life for a long time. During some of his campaigns, I've quoted some of them because I wrote a book, published it in 2011, and I've quoted some of the things that he said at that time. We have to transform this economy from its Gettysburg, structure. That's what they call it. I mean, colonial structure. But when it comes to the concrete actions being taken to that effect, then we are always found wanting. And I don't know why, there's always that kind of a shortcoming when people are in government and they don't, take those actions that they said, oh, when we come to government, we will do them. You see, I mean, look at a simple example is our cocoa. Our cocoa. Ghana used to be the largest producer. Now Ivory Coast has taken it. We are in second. Ivory Coast and Ghana, we produce together 60% of the world output.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the total world cocoa market is worth $10 billion. I mean, raw beans market, $10 billion. So Ivory Coast and Ghana, we produce 60%. So we'll split 6 billion between us. We will earn 2 and they will earn 4. That is all that we get. But the chocolate, international chocolate market is worth $100 billion.
Wow.
So if you keep producing raw cocoa beans, you are just targeting a $10 billion market.
You're not exploiting it into bigger branches.
Exactly. Now, what prevents us from processing our cocoa locally? Building the biggest cocoa factory in the world, because you are the biggest producer.
Yeah.
What has prevented us from doing this all these years? I don't know. You see, I'm not in policy, so sometimes I feel like, is it because we are not there? Do you hear me?
Maybe they don't get to see it the way you see it.
Exactly. So maybe, and what is it that inhibits them, when they get into power? It's not only cocoa, but industrialization as a whole, because that is what will transform this economy. Okay. Of course, the government has this one district, one factory, but whether we are doing enough there and whether it's the right model for us and all that, because as a country, we have de-industrialized the country. Ghana today is less industrialized than it was in 1970. Look at that. When we should have become more industrialized, we are less industrialized. So we are not doing things exactly right. Well, government says that under economic transformation, they are, they are targeting agric and the agribusiness. They have a lot of policies there.
Yeah.
And then also industry and technology. And then digitization. No, I believe that these policies are, well placed, well directed. Again, let us implement them. That's always a challenge. Let's implement them. The budget has so many policies. Let's implement them. But in many cases, you also need resources.
Yeah.
And then the resources, although we are not mobilizing enough resources.
Yeah.
In fact, apart from the revenue, we also have our natural resources to exploit. We are not doing much there. Whatever we exploit, we give it away to foreign investors.
Yeah.
And we keep very little for ourselves. That's also not good.
Yeah, Doc, before I come to my conclusion, so obviously government has gone for some money to establish the Development Bank Ghana. Some have argued that already the ADB is already in existence. We have a lot of other banks. Why do we need to go and establish a whole new bank? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, of course, the ADB, NIB, there used to be even Bank for Housing and Construction. In addition to,
I didn't know that.
Yes, there used to be, those specialized banks that maybe they were created by Kwame Nkrumah's time.
Wow.
And the idea was that, you have commercial banks who do mainly commercial business. And then alongside that, in every country, you also have development banks. Okay. So these development banks, they were targeted to strategic sectors of the economy. So we had Bank for Housing and Construction. It's no more there. They turned it to something else, which was meant to finance the housing sector. Okay. Then NIB for industry.
Yeah.
And then ADB for agriculture.
Agric, yeah.
But somehow it looks like along the way, these specialized development banks, it's like they lost their way and their mandates, and they all got involved in commercial banking. Typically, you get me? And they were doing less of what they were established
to actually do, yeah.
Exactly. But the question is, did you need a new one to to not to replace them, but maybe work side by side with them? Or did you have to reform these existing ones? That was the question. Okay. Well, the government decided that, and I don't know what informed their decision, that we'll rather establish a new, development bank. But me personally, I'm all for development banks. I mean, in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you leave your strategic, sectors, agriculture, industry, and maybe housing, to the traditional commercial banks, they will neglect them, or the kind of interest rates that they will be charging. Credit is so expensive that those sectors cannot grow as much as you would wish to. So you need to create a specialized bank so that at least government or the central bank can subsidize the credit that is going to those sectors that will be advanced by the bank. So I'm sure the $200 million or so that they have contracted, borrowed to fund the bank, I'm sure that they are going to target it on lend it to these various sectors at subsidized rates. But the most important thing also is that you make sure that you recover those loans, because in the past the NIBs and the ADBs, they suffered from large amounts of non-performing loans. They lost money.
NPLs.
So what you have to do is that you make sure that this new bank, they don't also lose so much money because people don't pay back their loans. But I'm all for a development bank. Okay, and if government thinks that they should, the bank should operate side by side with ADB and NIB because they have, lost their mandates, I don't know. They are in the best position to decide.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we are concluding, and your concluding part of your statement that you put out a few days ago. For me, it's the interesting bit is the end. You say, we need to take bold and innovative and ambitious measures to achieve the necessary quantum jumps in our development indicators so that we can lift our people out of poverty within a generation. The opportunity should be seized to redirect budget projections to this end while implementing transformative policies to accelerate the development of this country. And you say this all in the midst of a health and an economic crisis. What are your final thoughts?
Well, of course, I stand by exactly what you have read, my conclusion.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as a country, we've waited too long. It's like we are crawling. And if I look at the budget, the projections that they have in the budget, even going forward, I don't see any serious, there's not enough ambition. Okay, Ghana will grow at 5%, and the IMF says we should grow at 5% annually, and then we accept it. Why should we accept it? Because if we are to grow at 5%, it may take us, I don't know how long, to increase our per capita income, double it, and so on. Our people are poor, so we need to be bolder. We need to be more optimistic because we need to achieve quantum jumps, not just small incremental increases in our development indicators. And we can do that. The transformation of the economy, as we have said, has to be taken seriously, because that is the area that will take us, allow us to grow, transform the economy, and catch up with those who are already above us. We started at the time of independence with these Southeast Asian countries. They have got far ahead of us. And what they have the same resources that we have. So we need to change the way that we do things. So I still stand by my conclusion. But you said we are in a COVID environment.
Yeah.
So yes, certainly we all agree that COVID is putting some challenges on us in terms of government expenditure and all that. That's the more reason that In fact, even because of COVID, revenue is also not.
Yeah, we're not
growing
able
as
to
much.
generate as much as we expect. Yeah.
I stated a lot of areas where we can plug the loopholes. That has got nothing to do with COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
exemptions, property taxes, illicit
Yeah.
financial. We can still have COVID and be doing those things. So we cannot say because of COVID, we've given up on everything. No, life must still go on because as they said, COVID is a new normal. So we must learn to live with it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Doc, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, we've been speaking to
Okay.
Dr. John Kwache. He's the Director of Research at the Institute of Economic Affairs, and he's imploring that we take bold steps to revitalize our economy. This has been this week's edition of BizTech on Ghana Web TV. My name is Mauli Aholumega. Over to you back, Ernestina, in the studio.
That was an interesting conversation, and thank you, Mauli Aholumega, for that interview. Up next is Tech Bits with Winston Amwabin.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Winston Amwabin, and today on Tech Bits, I'll be bringing another educational tool your way. Let me introduce you to Duolingo. It's an online tool that helps you learn new languages like German, French, Spanish, and Japanese, among others, in a fun and interactive way. It comes equipped with activities to help make learning a new language easy and interesting. Designed by experts, Duolingo prepares you to have real conversations in the language of your choice. It's available for free on your PC or smartphone. Today, I'll show you how you can use it on your smartphone.
Okay, so if you have an Android phone, what happens is that you go to the Play Store, and if you have an iOS device, you go to the App Store. Since I'm using an Android phone, I'll click on the Play Store. And when Play Store launches, in the search box, you type Duolingo. And you can see it says Duolingo, learn languages free. So you click on that. And then since I already have the app installed, I don't need to install it again. But then you install it if you don't have it installed already. So since I already have it installed, I click on open. And then we wait for the app to launch. So once it launches, you can see the app screen, Duolingo. You can see over 500 million learners and practice speaking, listening, and reading. So if you already have an account, you can click I already have an account. But since we are now starting to learn it and I don't have an account, I'm going to click on get started. So then on the next screen, you choose the language you want to learn. So I'm going to go with Japanese. So then we'll wait a bit whilst it loads the Japanese course. So then it asks you for a review about where you heard about the app from. So just to skip this, I'm going to click other. Then it asks you why you want to learn the language. So let me say for travel. So we can see here it talks about the course overview. You learn the basics of listening, speaking, reading, writing, and grammar in Japanese. This course overview is to help you in the best way possible for you to learn a language for when you are traveling. If you chose any other category, like maybe school or let's say business, it would have taught you different ways to learn the language. But this particular course is tailored towards you because you chose traveling. So let me click on continue. And then you pick a goal. If you're a casual learner, that's about 5 minutes a day. If you're a regular learner, that's about 10 minutes a day. And if you're an insane learner, it says that's when it gives you a course for 20 minutes a day. So you're going to go with a regular learner. So then you have to choose a path. If it's the first time you're learning Japanese or you already know some Japanese, so I'm going to click first time. So then it loads the course for you. And then the course starts. You can see some word here and it mentions the word so you can repeat the word and helps you to also identify the characters of the word. So over here it said something like Niku. So then I'm going to hit Niku and then we check and we have it right. So then you keep going through the course and the different words that you have. You click continue and it brings another one. So after you've gone through the whole course, you can then register for the app and create an account so that you can have milestones you can follow. You have daily streaks that you can follow to help you, to keep you on the app, to help you stay focused. And you can also share with your friends so you can continue learning with your friends and to make it more interactive.
Okay, that's all for today. and I'll come your way again next week with more internet tools. Stay safe, and I'll see you next week.
Up next is Biz Headlines. To our very first story, there seems to be growing agitation between the Electricity Company of Ghana and the Ghana Grid Company Limited, Joy News has reported. According to the news portal, this is as a result of Gridco's decision to invade a territory belonging to the ECG in order to sell power for industrial use at a cheaper tariff than what ECG offers. This news portal adds that the move is currently affecting the cooperation between both entities, with looming crisis set to kick off should the matter not be quickly resolved. It is said that the two power distribution institutions have since tabled their concerns to the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. ECG is, however, said to owe Gridco 1 billion cedis. The company, which is currently replacing obsolete transmission lines on major lines in the country for reliable and sustainable power supply, requires an additional $350 million to complete the project. Unhappy with the lack of progress in paying the debt, Joy News is learning that Gridco decided to sell power to industries at a cheaper tariff than what ECG offers others. Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has assured Guta that the GIPC Act requiring $1 million minimum capital will not be removed nor amended in favor of Nigerians or other nationals. This comes after the Speaker had earlier made comments indicating that a review of the Act before Nigeria's Parliament, but clarified they were in consonance with a joint communique drafted by the Ghana-Nigeria Trade Delegation in the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Guta, after a meeting held with the Speaker of Parliament last week, detailed some outcomes of decisions with regards to the trade impact. The statement signed by its president, Dr. Joseph Obin, said the meeting discussed the $1 million capital requirement to be paid by the foreign retail traders, of which the Speaker stated he had no jurisdiction to remove or amend the Act to favor Nigerian traders and other nationals. The meeting also sought to clarify some assertions that the Speaker had labeled Ghanaian traders as opportunists, of which he told members of Guta his statements before Nigeria's Parliament had been misconstrued and offer better clarity. Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh has lamented the debt crisis the Electricity Company of Ghana is currently faced with. According to the minister, a company like ECG, having a monopoly status to sell energy, should have huge cash reserves and also be able to make profits as financial backup. But what do we find? The ECG is always in debt, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh noted, as quoted by Graphic Online. This is because the chunk of the losses were in the area of commercials, and which is what the ECG is actually known for, selling energy. The Director of Research of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Dr. John Kwachi, has stated that revenue mobilization in Ghana still remains a major challenge. According to him, compared to other countries, Ghana's expenditure is not high enough because government fails to collect a lot of taxes. He further explained that a low revenue effort poses a constraint on the country's economy. Bank of Ghana has directed telecommunications company, financial, technological companies, mobile money operators, utility providers, among other organizations to provide information on the credit behavior of borrowers to curb risk associated with lending. Other organizations required also to provide information about their clients to the credit reporting system database include retailers, government institutions that offer credit to SMEs, institutions that provide identification documents, entities that supply goods and services on a postpaid or installment basis, student loan schemes provided by private or government agencies, and other entities that have relevant data and information that complies with permissible purposes of credit bureaus. According to the directive, the move will help promote the sharing of information on credit history of debtors with lenders and other users of the CRS. Given credit information, sharing is beneficial to both lenders and borrowers as it helps lenders or creditors better assess the credit risk of each borrower or debtor. The Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority has encouraged importers of cars to acquaint themselves with the essential details associated with clearance of vehicles at the port in order to avoid confusion they often riddled with. Educating the public via the Eye on Port program, supervisor at the Customs Technical Services Bureau, Justice Maga, outlined the customs clearance process using Ghana's port. He emphasized that following the purchase of a vehicle and shipment by the shipper, one needs the service of a clearing agent who, per Ghana's laws, are the only ones allowed to clear goods at various ports and frontiers of the country. According to him, for the purposes of accountability and due to the technical nuances associated with customs house business, these agents are trained by customs to the level of a senior revenue officer, therefore equipping them with the technical know-how to deal with customs. He said the clearing agents will have to submit the details of the bill of lading of shipment, which contains the details of the car, into the integrated customs management system. A 4% increase in public debt, a 4% increase in public setup base pay will add 1.2 billion cedis to government spending on compensation this year, according to the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. Ken Ofori-Atta told Parliament that overall expenditure on compensation will hit 31.5 billion cedis from the initial projection of 30.3 billion cedis. The increase is made up of 1 billion of extra spending on wages and salaries and a 175.3 million cedis rise in social contribution payments. Following a worsened fiscal situation after the coronavirus crisis, the government has resorted to pay restraint to help achieve fiscal consolidation. This led in July to one of the lowest public sector wage settlements in many years, with the government reaching a deal with unions to raise the base pay by 4% in 2021 and 7% in 2022. That's all for today. Keep watching Ghana Web TV. But before you go, log on to www.ghanaweb.com for more stories. Follow us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Ghana Web, and on YouTube, Ghana Web TV. My name is Ernestina Sewa Asante. Have a lovely weekend.